point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. I expect many people to disagree with my thoughts here, and that is good. Life would be very boring if everyone thought the exact same way. Envy, gluttony, lust, wrath, sloth, pride, greed. Long ago, the four elements lived together. I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. The seven deadly sins, perhaps one of the most influential aspects of the Catholic Church to stick around, even with those that are not religious. And it's weird because these points are never actually introduced in the Bible, or any version that I have read at least, or know of. But there is something so powerful and poignant about this concept. Everyone that hears about the seven deadly sins has a visceral reaction to them. They can remember every wrong that they have ever seen or done themselves and point it back to one of these all-powerful driving forces of nature. This concept is so powerful that even media from non-religious and generally non-Christian countries have adopted it into different forms of their media. I can remember even a few K-dramas bringing it up. It's fascinating and completely understandable. The seven deadly sins just clicks in your head for the most basic desires that you can think of, aspects of life that people not just want, but at least need a little bit of it in order to survive. Eating, dreaming, wanting, sleeping, boasting, drinking, fighting, and the reason each and every one of us are actually here, The important aspect about each and every one of the seven deadly sins is that each is an important desire that keeps us alive. Attraction to others is what continues the species. Having at least a small ego prevents us from being stepping stones to others. Anger lets us know when something is unjust. Hunger lets us know when we need sustenance. Fatigue lets us know when we need to rest. It is all important. Even the desire to obtain more resources for yourself and your group. That's as primal as any other innate desire in the world. This goes way past even the hunter-gatherer point of our evolution to when we were fish. We need resources to survive, so get as much of that as possible as quickly as you can. It's that simple. But for some reason, greed has always held a special place in the seven deadly sins, more than ever, from the Catholic Church itself to artists today. And even if you go back into the Bible, some of the stories, like where Jesus actually attacked people in the church because they were abusing their powers for resources. The idea of obtaining more and more for yourself, often at the expense of others, brings forth wrath. Just look at Helluva Boss. Now, I'm not too into that series. If you think that I take things seriously, you just need to look at that fan base. Everyone and their mothers take VivziePop's work as passionately and vehemently as anything ever. Imagine if the fan base of The Walking Dead started criticizing the small indie zombie games in the most angry way possible. It's insane how mad people get over some indie cartoon. Look, I'm not the biggest fan in the world of it, but the reason I don't criticize it that much is because it's a small indie thing. We need to have different standards. If someone is just out on their own doing things on a very small budget and a very minimal amount of experience, then we should probably treat it a little differently than giant corpos with unlimited funds and all of the experts in the world working behind it. Come on, let's get our priorities straight here, people.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Not to say that you can't criticize it. You can criticize every single piece of art. In fact, I have my own problem with it right now. One thing I noticed from Helluva Boss was that every single deadly sin seemed to have redeeming qualities to them except for greed. Because of course, like it's the one thing that keeps us all down. And the truth is, the love of money is in fact the root of all evil. But a lack of desire to obtain more for yourself is terrible. If you have no desire to gain more for yourself or your group, to improve yourself and to see numbers grow, then you're just a sack of meat living in a pod and eating bugs. Remember the Lion King? Simba being a man-child was not a good thing because his lack of drive and desire made him do nothing until lust and pride played a role in his story. See what I did there with pride? Or love and a desire to make his father proud. Whatever you want to call it, he needed a reason to get off his ass and actually do something to help people. Now, too much greed isn't a good thing, of course. It leads to hurting others, like any of the 7 deadly sins. It leads to poverty, sociopathy, but oh my god, is it the most overplayed thing in the world right now? How many Wolf of Wall Street movies, shows, and games are there? So much anti-capitalism that it's become a meme, and you can criticize capitalism as much as you want. I'm not married to it or anything. I don't care. I didn't invent it. But let's not kid ourselves into thinking that we exist in anything but corporatism right now. We basically live in the cyberpunk universe with giant corpos dictating our entire lives. Capitalism, free markets, and competition died a long time ago. I just wish we had awesome tech to go along with all this. But we can't have any of that. Instead, we have stuff that tracks us, predicts our thoughts, and can steal our products if we don't toe the line. Yay! Look, greed isn't actually good. That's just a joke that I think is hilarious. But let's not act like it's worse than all of the other sins put together. It was a combination of all of the sins that got us into this terrible system that we have to live with right now. This absolute hatred of greed, while everyone being the greediest MFers that I have ever seen, is absolutely hilarious to me. There is no form of entertainment out right now that views greed as being positive in any way whatsoever, at least in the West. It's one of the numerous reasons I find Full Metal Alchemist to be so fascinating. Greed is the only member of the 7 deadly sins to have any sort of redeeming qualities to it, and it was all connected to people. Greed was redeemed and rebelled from his original creator numerous times because of his connections to real people. He wanted more and more and couldn't be kept down by his boss. No spoilers, by the way. Greed is always too ambitious. It can't be kept in place, even more so than wrath and pride, which should theoretically be the most unstable of all the sins. At the same time, while the most rebellious, greed is the only one with real human connections. It can be made good, and that says something. It reminds me of Nami from One Piece. Her greed is shown to be a product of growing up in a poor household. She wants more for herself, more for her family, more for her village, more for the people that she loves, especially after Arlong. But she still often drops the greed when she gains real human connections with people in trouble.
Really makes you think.
Look, greed isn't good and it isn't evil. Like every human instinct, it originates from a primal lizard part of our brains. Desire for more resources so that we don't die, so that our group doesn't die. It's really that simple. It started out as a good thing, like all of the other so-called sins. Everything is bad in excess, even water. You can kill yourself by drinking too much water at once, but the desire for more for yourself and more for your family is the key to innovation, to advances in science, to new ways of thinking and resources that helps the human race prosper. Saying that there aren't any good qualities about greed whatsoever is a complete and utter lie, and I hate lies in storytelling. Storytelling is about telling a very complicated lie in order to find a fundamental truth. And the truth is, no one is perfectly altruistic. Unfortunately, it cannot be that way. There's always a what's in it for me attitude among people. That's life. That's greed. And it can be directed and controlled. It can be made a good thing as long as the human connection is involved. As long as we care about people like Greed and Nami did. I'm not saying to be 100% altruistic at all times. That would be a terrible idea, because then you'll get taken for a ride. Did you know that the patent for insulin was surrendered as soon as it was created because the people behind it wanted everyone to be able to purchase it at cost of production? Yay for corporatism. It's a fine line that needs to be walked to be healthy for yourself and for the people around you, like everything else. But acting like greed is pure evil or pure good is stupid. It's an urge that is in everyone. It needs to be channeled in the right way. If not, things fall apart. Extremism rarely works out in any way for anyone. Without greed, Edward Elric's group would have failed. Without Nami, the Straw Hat Crew wouldn't be able to pay for anything. The desire for more can be used for good, and acting like we don't need greed or there isn't anything good that can come from it is foolish, or just plain deceitful in order to hurt others, because oftentimes those who have the hardest problems with a specific vice take it out on other people. It's called projection. Just look at how anti-LGBT plus people are often in the closet over something. It's the same thing here. Greedy for wealth, greedy for power, greedy for acknowledgement, greedy for social media clout, but not greedy for actual humanity. That's the problem. And the next time you see greed being portrayed as the most evil sin in existence, remember that the person behind it is probably one of the greediest people in the world. If they were in business, they would be at the head of the evil corpos. You're welcome to disagree with me. That's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
Don't care how I want it now.
Hey, do you like stories about an interconnected world? Then consider giving my LPCO books a try. They are all connected in some way, but you can jump in at any point, unless it's a series. Then you have to start at the beginning. But I got 3 books out right now and 3 coming next year. You will not have to wait long for content. Either way, thank you. I appreciate you. Do not despair.